Hello, I'm going to try recording part of my presentation. The reason I will record is I think it is very difficult to choose what to say. And so I want you to know that I had to leave out lots of material to do the presentation. And so number one is you can't include everything. Number two is you can't be perfect. So please just do it and try to teach us something interesting. So with that in mind, let me start my slideshow, and I'll go up to about the first 1/3 in this talk, about the first 1/3 of my preparation. My book was Crazy Like Us, The Globalization of the Western Mind by Ethan Waters. And this book was very surprising and very shocking, because in this book, the writer of the book, Ethan Waters, really says that Western ideas about psychology could be wrong. Maybe everything we thought that we learned in Western psychology about saying, for example, depression is an illness, maybe that's all a big mistake. So that's a very, very interesting idea. Why I chose the book? Well, I borrowed the book from Aya Sensei. The book is about American psychology, and the author said American psychology made people think they have a mental illness in a culture which did not have mental illness before. That's so surprising. I learned about anorexia nervosa. That was one example of an illness. It's the illness when people try to diet too much. And apparently that illness came to Hong Kong from America. And depression, also the diagnosis of depression and the medication, the medicine for depression, came to Japan from America, according to this author. Why I chose the book and what problem I want to solve. I want to understand cultural differences in mental health because I live in Japan, which is not my native country. I'm teaching English. So in a way, I'm teaching something close to American culture and Western culture. If American culture and Western culture is causing a problem, I should know about it. I should be careful. Here's the overview of the book. Ethan Waters explains that Western influence on psychiatry around the world might not be good. He gives examples of mental health issues which started being found after the country became globalized. Who is the author? Well, Ethan Waters is a journalist. He has written several books about psychology, but he is not a trained psychologist. He interviewed some doctors for this book. And so I think he is a good source. Waters believes we should consider mental illness as part of the cultural situation and not use only the diagnosis and maybe not use only the medication which is recommended in American psychiatry without thinking carefully about the local situation. So here is some vocabulary, and I see that I didn't make that look very good. Here's the vocabulary with Japanese translation, and here's some details. Symptom. He has a headache. It is a symptom of something wrong. And so the diagnosis, when we're thinking more deeply about symptoms, What is the diagnosis? That is the cause. In this picture, the doctor is making a diagnosis of the illness. If the symptom is headache, maybe the diagnosis could be poor eyesight. It could be he hit his head. It could be he has stress. It could be he has a brain tumor. So some of those diagnoses might be psychological. Some of them might be physical. Diagnosis means the reason. And here is something important in our book by Ethan Waters, the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. It's the American book with a list of psychological illnesses and the symptoms which go with that illness. Now, according to Ethan Waters, the DSM is not really true in every country. American psychology was a big influence. So influence is another key word for my talk. And so now let's look at the contents of the book. The first big topic is anorexia in Hong Kong. Anorexia was not really found very much in Hong Kong before Hong Kong received a lot of Western influence in the 1970s. But then after the 1970s, gradually anorexia increased a lot. In this picture, you can see the person who's looking in the mirror and she thinks that she's large, but actually she is not really large at all. And so this became a problem in Western society. It wasn't found much before the 20th century in Western society too. It was always said young women became anorexic because the image of women in magazines was very slim, so they wanted to look like that. Another cause was if a woman couldn't control her life, she could control her eating, so she might try to diet. And the British Princess Diana was an example of somebody who tried not to diet, but to control her eating by bulimia, by vomiting. There was an increase in talking about anorexia in the 1980s and 90s in Europe because writers said that anorexia showed that women had a difficult situation. So feminists said anorexia shows women's need attention. Women need attention. Waters said maybe people became anorexic because they read about it. And so it was caused by them reading about it. Anorexia started to increase in Hong Kong in the 1990s. I think now this is the point where we could fast forward through my slides, and you can stop and read my slide if you're interested, but I'm going to kind of stop my talk there. And there will be part two if you're interested. So bear in mind, you don't need to cover everything in the book. I think that's the most important thing for now. And also, when you focus on vocabulary, try to select and then give some English information about the word as well. Okay, good luck with your preparation, and please ask us if you have questions.